So Denise Tamir is an attorney and a member of the Florida Bar since 1995. Denise is a recovering litigator who began mediating as the Florida Supreme Court Certified Circuit Civil and Family Mediator in 2009. She earned her Bachelor of Business Administration in International Finance and Marketing from the University of Miami and her law degree from Nova Southeastern University, where she served on the school's Law Review Board. Denise has been a lay leader in South Florida's Jewish community for over 20 years, serving as Vice President of Betora Beniro Campus, Vice Chair of the Michael and Russell JCC, co-founder of the Renew J-Cat Theater, and founder of the American Friends of Meir Medical Center. Professionally, she served as the Israeli-American Consul's Florida Regional Director from 2014 to 2015. Denise currently serves on the Board of Directors of the Greater Miami Jewish Federation, where she chairs the Israel Engagement Committee and was instrumental in the development of its Israeli division and Israel U. The accomplishment of which she's most proud, however, are her almost 40 years marriage to Ofer Tamir and raising two amazing women, Daniel and Ariel. Poquito, wait. Now comes my words.
So I know Denise for the last 20 years, and she really, I try to find you in the Parsha of the week. I can find you in many Parshiyot, but there is an image in the Parsha where the Israelites are, Pharaoh is coming behind and the water, and they scream to God, and God says, Matitzak elai. What do you want from me? You do work. And according to the Midrash, there is somebody called Nachshon who jumped. So you are our Nachshon in so many different areas. Beitora is better. My life is much better. We are personal friends, and she was my advisor as many times as I needed her. And you spoke about Kishkes, Israel, human rights, Zionism, family, community is in our Kishkes. Thus, she was chosen to be today our guest speaker as we address two topics that are very urgent in Jewish life and in America and in the world, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Please welcome Denise Tamir.
Can I use this one? Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't want to hold it and talk. Can you hear me? Okay, so these are the words of a recent George Washington University graduate named Blake Flayton. I had always felt at home in America. It was my home, and my parents' home, and my grandparents', and it never seemed like it could be anywhere else. But 3 weeks from now, I am leaving the place where I was born and making a new life in Israel. The story of why is the story of a growing cohort of Gen Z Jews who see what the older generations cannot yet see, that the future doesn't feel like it's here as much as it's there. When people ask me what the origin point is when I knew I would leave, it's not one particular moment, but a collection. Among them, the drunk girl at my alma mater, George Washington, caught on video in November 2019 saying, "We're going to bomb Israel, you Jewish pieces of blank." The Hillel that was spray painted with Free Palestine in July 2020. The University of Wisconsin, the Chabad House set on fire in August 2020 at the University of Delaware. The Jewish vice president of student government at USC who resigned after getting barraged with anti-Semitic hate. The Jewish fraternity at Rutgers that got egged during a Holocaust Remembrance Day commemoration. The Chabad menorah that was vandalized for the 4th time in 2 years in May 2020. The protester who hurled rocks at Jewish students at the University of Illinois. The swastikas that turned up in July and August at Brown. The innumerable anti-Semitic incidents at San Francisco State University. The 2 girls recently kicked out of a group that combats sexual assault at SUNY because they had the temerity to post something positive about Israel. The proliferation of statements and articles and open letters proclaiming support for the BDS movement, a political movement that has its stated goal, the dismantling of the Jewish state, from Harvard to Pomona to Berkeley to the University of Illinois, along with the conviction widespread on many campuses that Jewish students should be barred from conversations about BDS because, well, they're Jews. In college, for the first time, I began to feel the way Jews have often felt in other times and places, like the other. At first, I felt deeply alone in this feeling. I wondered if I was paranoid or hysterical. But I discovered I'm not the only one. There are many other 20-something Jews who, like me, had never felt this kind of isolation until suddenly we did. Every time I read those words, they break my heart. Not because I have any problem with making Aliyah. Those of you who know me know I did the same thing when I graduated college. My heart breaks because of why he and so many of his friends are making Aliyah. Their college experience was so filled with anti-Semitism that they no longer see a Jewish future in the United States. In 2005, our Greater Miami Jewish Federation's main event featured Professor Alan Dershowitz. I'll never forget his opening. He said, next to a nuclear Iran, the greatest threat to Israel today is the North American college campus. That was in 2005. That was 18 years ago. I would update that statement today, and I would say, next to a nuclear Iran, the greatest threat to the Jewish people began on the college campus decades ago and has now spread to the boardrooms of corporate America, the newsrooms of mainstream media, to Hollywood, to the streets of LA and Brooklyn, and to our public schools beginning as early as kindergarten. We feel like it's coming at us from everywhere because it is. So how did we get from Alan Dershowitz to Blake Flayton? Before we delve into that, I think we need to define what anti-Semitism is. Though there's now a detailed definition with critical legal importance, I like Rabbi Jonathan Sachs's definition for its simplicity. Anti-Semitism is persecuting Jews and denying them the right to exist collectively with the same rights as everybody else. I think that's simple and easy. All we want to do is be treated like everybody else. Rabbi Sachs also compared anti-Semitism to a virus that has survived 2 millennia because it mutates over time. The Jew is always cast at whatever is reviled in any given society. So when societies were ordered by religious affiliation, we were the Christ killers, and we were hated for our religion. During the Russian Revolution, we were the hated capitalists or the hated communists, depending on which side you were on. In Nazi Germany, we were an inferior race. Yes, whoopee, it was about race. Today, we're being attacked on many fronts, and in each one, it has a similar element, the element of casting the Jew in a reviled role. When the U.S. ambassador to fight anti-Semitism, Deborah Lipstadt, spoke at yet another Federation main event, I just want you to know I go to them often, and I learn a lot. You should join us February 20th for the next one. If you haven't registered, please do. But Deborah Lipstadt said, anti-Semitism is a 3-legged stool. Unfortunately, I think the stool grew another leg since her presentation. First, anti-Semitism comes from the right. It's easily identifiable. The right-wing supremacist who makes it clear his belief that Jews are not white when he chants, Jews will not replace us while they march around with their tiki torches. This form can be very dangerous and even deadly. But historian Dr. Einat Wilf equates this anti-Semitism with street violence. You can see it, you can recognize it, you know what it is, and you can take precautionary measures to avoid it, as every one of us did when we walked into the synagogue tonight. Second is the anti-Semitism of the left that comes from the doctrine of intersectionality and its younger sibling, critical race theory. This proposes that oppressed minorities must unite to fight white privileged society that keeps them from succeeding. In this paradigm, all people of color are oppressed and all white people are oppressors. This binary falls apart, however, when trying to categorize the Jew. If oppressed minorities cannot succeed on their own, well then Jewish success undermines their theory, unless Jews are not an oppressed minority. Recasting the most oppressed people in history as the oppressor is a perverted inversion of history and a form of erasive anti-Semitism. Then there's the anti-Semitism of the Islamicist. Not all Muslims, of course, not even most Muslims. Some Muslims, a minority of radical Islamists that fomented anti-Semitism in the Middle East for centuries. And they have now exported that anti-Semitism through our college campuses and immigration to the United States. It's cloaked as a human rights movement. This form of anti-Semitism attacks the Jewish state. The Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement, or BDS, is merely a new iteration of a long history of delegitimizing Israel that goes back to the 1975 libel that Zionism is racism. And then there's the fourth one, I think, the Farrakhan Black Hebrew Israelite variety, popularized by the artist formerly known as Kanye West. which has spawned an attack on a Jewish market in New Jersey, the stabbing attack on a rabbi's Hanukkah party in Muncie, New York, and 194 cases of verbal or physical assault against Jews in New York between 2018 and 2022, 97% of which were committed by minorities. Most alarming is the degree to which these crimes go unpunished. Less than 10 perpetrators were convicted, and only 2 were given prison sentences. The most recent and shocking example was a plea deal in New York for Wasim Awade. He was sentenced to 6 months for brutally beating a Jew in Times Square. All of this is terrible and worthy of a deep dive, but tonight I want to focus on the delegitimization of Israel and anti-Zionism because I think it's the most misunderstood and the most dangerous. ADL defines Zionism as the movement for the self-determination and statehood of the Jewish people in their ancestral home. Therefore, if you're an anti-Zionist, you're against the very existence of the Jewish state. No other state's right to exist is ever questioned, only the world's one Jewish state. The anti-Zionists will claim that this is a political position and protected speech under the First Amendment, which is true. Unlike in Europe, in the US, they have a First Amendment right to be anti-Semitic and speak anti-Semitic things. That doesn't make it moral, and that doesn't make it right in a liberal society. However, we also have a right. No, we have an obligation to call it out whenever we see it. Their next argument is that calling anti-Zionism anti-Semitism is merely our way to stifle debate and silence criticism about Israel. Let's unpack that one for a minute. Criticizing the state of Israel is the Israeli people's #1 pastime. We know that by watching 150,000 Israelis converge on Habima Square over the last few weeks to protest their current government. Clearly, criticizing the state of Israel, its government, its policies, even its society is not innately anti-Semitic. So how can we tell the difference? When do we know when criticizing Israel crosses the line into anti-Semitism? I like Nathan Sharansky's 3 Ds. It's simple, it's neat, and it's easy to understand. Demonization, delegitimization, and a double standard. Demonization uses accusations and imagery to portray Israel as demonic, kind of like the blood libel of history. In the old blood libel, the accusation was Jews killed Christian babies, used their blood to make matzahs for the Passover Seder. Designed to really put in the minds of most people, in the minds of the anti-Semite, the image of the Jew as a demon. The updated version is that Israelis target and kill Palestinian children deliberately, or that Israel is ethnically cleansing the Palestinian people, or that Israel is an apartheid state, or that Israel is the new Nazi. Delegitimization challenges Israel's very right to exist. When they say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, it's the embodiment of delegitimization. They're not calling for a 2-state solution. They are calling to make the space between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Judenrein. And the double standard, holding the Jewish state to standards no other state is held to or could possibly achieve. The UN Human Rights Council's Permanent Commission of Inquiry into Israel that literally put Israel on trial permanently is a prime example. There is no such commission to investigate China's treatment of the Uyghurs, Iran's treatment of its own citizens now in their protests, Syria's use of chemical weapons on their own people, or any other country with horrific human rights records. Anti-Zionism embodies all 3 Ds in a movement to dismantle the world's only Jewish state, and it's spread like a cancer because our enemies successfully superimposed our race relations challenges onto the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Remember during the protests in 2016, 18, 19, the first one, the Ferguson protest, there were signs that said from Ferguson to Palestine. That was the first manifestation of the superimposing our racial challenges here in the United States on top of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Because they cloak the conflict in language of civil rights and human rights, young people on college campuses were quick to internalize this poisonous narrative. No young person wants to be seen as being against human rights, against civil rights, or worst of all, being seen as a racist. This has put our Jewish children in a terrible position. If they support their ancestral home, they are perceived as racist and forced out of the social justice movements that are important to them because we raised them to pursue social justice. So they now have to choose between an integral part of their own identity or the social justice causes that they are passionate about. This pressure on our children has prompted many young Jews to adopt an anti-Zionism narrative and divorce their Jewish identity from Zionism. If not now, and Jewish Voice for Peace are the most prominent examples of Jews that are joining the anti-Zionist camp. Which brings me to the most alarming current trend of all, pitting anti-Zionist Jews against Zionist Jews, or a new phenomenon called Jew splitting. When Jewish students complain that anti-Zionism on campus is anti-Semitic and makes them feel unsafe, they're now being told anti-Zionism can't be anti-Semitic. Look how many Jewish students are anti-Zionist. The anti-Zionist Jews on campus are elevated, and the Zionist Jews are denigrated, while their Jewish identity is redefined by others as being merely a religion with no connection to the Jewish state. This form of gaslighting dismantles our children's Jewish identity from its core. Remember when I said Dr. Einat Wolf called the old anti-Semitism from the right street violence? You can see it, you can take steps to avoid it. She equates this new anti-Semitism with domestic abuse. It's insidious, it uses gaslighting to tear down the identity of the victim, and it happens in the places where the victim should feel safe, in their social justice clubs, in the classroom, in the dorm room, on their campus. A recent Amcha Initiative report warns, it is crucial that the Jewish community understand an insidious phenomenon that has taken root on college campuses of late, a pervasive and relentless assault on Jewish identity that is likely to have dire consequences for the Jewish community in the years to come. Okay, so that's the bad news. I don't want to send you all home depressed because it's Shabbos and we're going to go home and eat something. So let's talk a little bit about the good news. We are still living in the one country that has welcomed and accepted us as a people and respected us for our shared values for centuries. After 2,000 years of wandering, we now have a homeland, though under attack in many ways, still stands strong as a beacon of democracy and elevates the position of every Jew around the world, because we know we have a place to go if we choose to, or if we have to, as we saw with Ukraine and Russia. I see a community uniting around this issue as never before. This Sunday, the Greater Miami Jewish Federation and SAGE are running a workshop for our teens and our parents. The partner organizations include Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, politically left, politically right, organizations that typically are very territorial and normally do not play nice in the same sandbox. And yet they're all coming together, united, to work on this and do better by our kids. So what can we do going forward? I think as a community, we need to make combating anti-Semitism and particularly protecting our Jewish children a higher priority. We must invest more resources in educating our children about Israel. We cannot do that in a 3-hour workshop. It must be sustained and consistent over several years. We do a great job of teaching our children about the Holocaust, but how much do they know about the most important, miraculous thing to happen to the Jewish people in 2,000 years? We also can't whitewash the more painful parts of Israel's history. Israel is great, but not perfect. If we don't have an honest discussion with our children about that, our enemies will. And when our children learn one bad fact that we didn't tell them first, then they wonder, what else did you lie to me about? And that leaves them vulnerable to the manipulation of the anti-Zionists. We can promote the adoption of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism. It's been accepted by nations around the world, our own State Department, the Department of Education, as well as most states in the United States. Along with the anti-BDS statutes now being passed across the country, this will be critical in combating anti-Semitism going forward. But finally, we must be proactive by fighting anti-Semitism with philo-Semitism, or promoting a love for the Jewish people. I'm sure everybody here has heard that there is a Black History Month. I'm pretty sure most people even know that it is this month in February. But how many people here know that there's a Jewish American Heritage Month, let alone when it is? I know you do. For the record, it's in May. I think we need to take better advantage of that month and use that time to showcase our contributions to this wonderful country as a way of countering the hateful messages of our enemies. I don't know if we can reverse the course, but I do know that 18 years from now, I want to say I did everything I could to try.